Good evening, everyone. I am Dr. Renee, your host. This is the Ask Dr. Renee show. This show is here to motivate and inspire you to live the life that you deserve. I'm bringing this show to you to give you stories of people who are just like you, and now they've gone on to live the life they deserve. I believe all of us should be happy. Life is too short to be miserable. This is not a dress rehearsal. And what are you waiting for to start living life right now? So whatever your dream is, go after it. And so my guest today, you'll hear about her dreams and aspirations and how she went after them. If this is your first time watching our show, some of our past guests have included Paul Carrick Brunson, Elvira Guzman of LVGPR, Shanti Das, the hip hop professional, DJ D Nice of Boogie Down Productions and well-known DJ across the world, Cupid, R&B singer, dance party line king, Cupid Shuffle, Q Robics, Felicia Butterfield Jones of Ween, and most recently, last week, we had Mario Armstrong of the Never Settle Club in the Today Show. Our guest tonight is Dr. Rachael Ross. Thank you for coming, Rachael.
Sure, anytime. Thanks for having me.
So let's get started. Rachael is, if you don't know, and if you didn't watch the trailer and you haven't seen, but Rachael is a regular co-host on the TV show The Doctors, which is a syndicated show across all networks, all sorts of networks across the country. So you can easily go to their website, The Doctors TV, and check out exactly where it's playing in your neighborhood. But Rachael, I wanted to start off with, when you were a child, did you always want to be a doctor?
I really don't know. When I was a kid, I was just trying to play and, see if my mom would buy me the right gym shoes. And I don't think back then I was really even thinking about anything like that. When you're a kid, you're just trying to be the best kid that you could be, wearing bargain brand clothes and hand-me-downs. You're just trying to figure out how to make them cool. So,
right.
Yeah. No.
Well,
I think the doctor thing came later.
Well, I know that I've read articles, and I know that your family has a very interesting story because there are so many doctors in your family. So can you tell how your mom kind of guided you guys to become possibly doctors if you were actually interested in it?
Yeah, well, I can remember, even when she was giving us baths when we were kids, it was like, you guys are going to be doctors just like your dad, so it's kind of a mom's form of brainwashing, so that you're thinking, you're going to be a doctor, and you look up one day and lo and behold, you are a physician. So my mom, that was her big focus, was on education. We lived in Gary, Indiana, but she drove us 45 minutes to a private school in Chicago to make sure that we, learned everything we were supposed to. And she did that, we did that every day from first grade through 11th grade. So, education was extremely important. And, brainwashing was a part of that too. So, my two sisters and my one brother, we all became physicians, and that's kind of how I attribute it to our brainwashing and our parents' focuses on education.
Now, were you always a good student, or you just worked hard? Some of us worked really hard, and that's how we got there. Others, slid in because they were just, super smart, and it just came easy for them.
Yeah, no, I was always an average student, but I've always been the type of person that I don't want to finish last, I'm not going to fail anything, and I'm just going to do just enough to, to slide through. So no, I was never, the top in the class and all of that, because that's not really what I was all that interested in. I was interested in music and, television shows and going to the movies and playing outside and playing tennis. So, but in our house, we had to get good grades, so I would do just enough to do that, and I was very happy with just skating on by.
Well, whatever works, because it works.
Yeah,
clearly.
Exactly.
Yes, because for the people that don't know, she has not one degree, but 2 graduate degrees, a PhD and an MD. So we'll get to that in a minute.
That's
so, it takes a lot. My hat's off to that. So we'll get to that in a moment. But so that's interesting that, but I understand because, you wanted to do what you wanted. You wanted to be a kid. And so you knew what you needed to do to get where you were going.
No, that's
so, yeah, when it came down to college, what, did you, because I know you went to Vanderbilt. So what made you decide to go down there?
Well, Renee, It was kind of one of those things. My sister Ruth was already in college down in Vanderbilt, and they had a black student weekend. And I went down there for the weekend and met a guy I liked. And he was a sophomore. No, he was a junior, actually. And we kept in touch, and we wrote, because back then you wrote letters.
Exactly.
And, that's where my mom really wanted me to go because my sister would be there to watch after me. And so after Black Student Weekend and meeting this guy, and we were going back and forth with letters, and he played the saxophone and all of that, I was like, well, Vanderbilt looks like the place to go. So it wasn't based on anything other than simple stuff like that. Now, I will say, had I known that black colleges and universities existed, I probably would have gone to one of those. It wasn't until visiting friends at Spelman and Howard that I'm like, what? Look at this. So, I really didn't know what was out there, and Vanderbilt was the only college I visited, and I met a guy and ended up there. So, hey.
Well, my sister, she visited me a lot, and where'd she end up? So
there
I
you
didn't
go.
realize you all had that in common, but yeah, she applied to one school,
Yep.
and she got in, and she was my suite mate the next year.
See, that's what I'm talking about. It's kind of like there's nothing like that comfort zone and knowing your sister somewhere, man. You can't beat it.
Yes. And my parents only had one place to move people into, and it just made it very simple.
Oh, see, that worked out. I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
Exactly. So
Cool.
I completely understand that. So now you have a very interesting undergraduate major. How did you arrive at that?
Yeah, I majored in anthropology, and I was pretty much a hippie. I mean, when you look back at pictures, like I had natural hair before natural hair was cool, like I was that person, I walked around in baggy overalls and wore patchouli and burned Nag Champa. So anthropology really fit with that because I was really into cultural differences and traveling and, just trying to figure out where we all came from and the origins of man. So, anthropology really fit that. And then now, really, especially being on the doctors every day, anthropology is really pretty much what I am. I consider myself to be a medical anthropologist because medical anthropologists kind of, try to figure out why it is that certain people have certain ailments, what can be done differently so that you can live a better life and a happier life and a healthier life. So, the anthropology thing has switched, but instead of it being mostly based around cultures, now it's just based around medicine and people.
That is very interesting. But I mean, in high school, how did you arrive at anthropology? Because that just wasn't even on my scope.
Yeah, you're thinking too much into this now. In high school, I wasn't thinking about anthropology. I mean, in high school, I was just in high school. I was never one of those students that was like planning out my future and I'm going to be an anthropologist and then it was never like that. It's like I got on campus and looked at all of the different majors that they offered and I was like, yeah, no, don't want to do that. Nah, that's not interesting. Nah, that's too much chemistry. Nah, and that's how anthropology tended to be really the only thing I was interested in besides like psychology, but psychology was one of those majors I felt like everybody majored in psychology, so anthropology was a little different. We got to go spend the summer digging for artifacts. It was just kind of really fit my personality really more than anything else.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that's very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
And I would have like I said, it wasn't even when I was at college. I don't even know what school that was. That in the College of Natural Science?
It was. That's funny because most people still to this day are like, well, what in the world is anthropology? How did that? But
no,
yeah,
One day with you is how I learned it. You said it one day. I forgot somebody. It was a discussion at brunch or something, and I was like, well, that's what that is because I had no idea. No earthly clue. But you know what? I have a degree in physiology, and many people are like, what is that?
There you go. So yes, I only picked majors and classes that I thought I would do well at. Now, physiology, I would have never picked that because it's got too much physics involved in it.
You're right. It was a year of physics. You're right. Right, and it was miserable, but I mustered through.
The moment I knew anthropology was going to be my major is I sat in a class and we had this professor, and so we would read these little books on these different cultures. We read about a culture called the Kung, who actually they had something called Jurunghu, and they attributed it to strength. So, but the kicker was that you had to try to understand the idea that older men would have sex with the younger men and give them jurunghu, which was strength, which is basically semen, in their mouths, and they would swallow that and become stronger. So, sitting there and sitting in the anthropology class trying to understand that these are cultural traditions and not just some off-the-wall thing that you've never heard of really kind of made me be like, you know what, I need to understand more about different cultures because right now I'm just feeling like that's nasty. So, anthropology kind of set the tone, but then once you realize that not all anthropology is cultural anthropology, then you're stuck in learning about the first dinosaurs and the first mammals. So it's a give or take with anything.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but you did go to college knowing that you were going to go to med school, or you decided while you were there?
No, I went to college not really knowing what I was going to do, and
okay.
I think it's that's why it's so easy for me to relate with young people because I mean everybody's always like, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? Like, I don't know. I just want to do. I want to be. So no, I didn't go to school thinking I was going to go to med school. I couldn't even imagine past, that first year of college. So no, I can't honestly say I had that revelation. No.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, so when did you decide you were going to go to medical school? Because I'm sure with anthropology, that's one of those degrees you have to get a graduate degree of some sort.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
And so what I did is I just took all of my basic requirements for med school because, mind you, I really didn't know what I was going to do, but my mom was still like, med school, medicine. So I got all my prereqs for med school and, went to a class to take the MCAT. So, I was doing all those things alongside of my anthropology degree. And so I probably got into med school on the account of two things. One, because my dad went to that school. But two, also because, it showed that I was a well-rounded student. I mean, I wasn't just like all anatomy and physiology and biochemistry and this and that. I was, kind of all over the place. I was volunteering in different organizations. I did a lot of outreach with HIV. And so, I think my application probably looked like, this is an interesting person. Yeah.
Definitely. And that's what they look for. So did everyone catch that? When you're applying to school, you want to not just be the book nerd. You need more than just grades. You need to have extracurriculars like volunteer work, participating in different groups and organizations, etc.
Right.
So that all of that is really important when you're applying to school. I am actually doing a career day this week, and I will need to tell these children that as well.
Yeah.
But it's really important that you have not just, grade point is great, but it's not the only thing.
No, that's true because they definitely want smart people, but they really want people who can relate with other people. That's one of the best signs of a good doctor, someone who can communicate and understand what another person's going through, have some empathy, some compassion, which is really important. So, yeah, that's good. Make sure you tell those cheering that.
Of course, because we both have met people that have no business doing patient care because of the fact that they do not know how to communicate with people because they're so into their books. People aren't really important to them.
No, that's true. And I'm hoping that that's dying out a little bit now. When you spend the time with these med students, they seem to be a little different because it's no longer this myth that doctors just make tons of money and live these lavish lifestyles. So now they're actually, people and young people are going into it because they really want to try to help and change the world as opposed to make a quick dollar. So that's a good positive change I've seen about medicine lately.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
So then, like I said, so you went to Meharry. Your dad went to Meharry. So when you do decide to apply to med school, did you apply to any other med school besides Meharry?
No.
Okay.
No, I didn't. I only applied to Meharry. I said if I was going to med school, that's the only place I was going. My sister was there. My dad had been there, and it was 10 minutes from Vanderbilt, so it was easy. And I was dating at the time, and I didn't want to leave my boo. And Nashville was where I wanted to stay. There's a theme here. There's a trend. So, and I got accepted to Meharry. I got accepted to their 5-year program, though, not their 4-year program. So their 5-year program, what they did is they split their first year into 2 years. No. Yeah, first year into 2 years, and then you join that class for the third, fourth, and fifth. So, it's about 15 of us that we're in the 5-year program, and so we all started together and finished together. So, and it was actually kind of nice because it broke up gross anatomy into, I want to say, a 2-year program instead of a 1-year program. So it was kind of leisurely. It fit my style. It gave me time to, like, get a property and rehab it on the side. Just random Rachael stuff. But
you need to hashtag that. The next time you're gardening, random Rachael.
Right. That's right. So so that's kind of how that worked out. And med school was one of those. It was a great experience. Young people are always like, oh, medical school, it takes so long to become a doctor, but really, being a student going through college and then being a student go through med school, it's really kind of fun. You meet great people, you have late night study sessions, you get to eat, bad food and think that you're really doing something fantastic. You can exercise, you've got all this energy because you're so young. I mean, those were some really fun times. So whenever people are like, it takes so long, I'm like, what are you in a rush for? Like what is what is the speed that you're trying to rush out there into the real world for again? So yeah, med school was great because it just kind of gave you an extra time to be a student and just figure out what life's all about. So.
I did 5 years too, but it wasn't a program like that. But yes, but I want to just definitely, do you know if Meharry still has a 5-year program?
I don't think they do anymore. I think they've cut that out, but if they offer it, it's good stuff. Because
that would have been really good. Because Wayne State, I don't think they have theirs either, but they had one too like that.
Oh, did they? And it was because at Vanderbilt, I can remember, I got a lot of B's and maybe a couple A's, and it's interesting because the A's weren't in any of the science courses. They were in like communications. I mean, I got the only A in the school in communications, so that's one thing my butt can really do is communicate. And then in anthropology classes, so those were all my strong suits. So I think when Meharry saw my application, they were kind of like, I don't know how this one's going to do, so let's put her in a 5-year program. But it worked out really well. It was great. And what it allowed me to really do is that my younger sister came to Meharry, and so we ended up being on the same track even though we were a year apart, and so we ended up graduating together. So Rebekkah and I were able to graduate together. She came and helped me out and made sure I knew when all the tests were, and she would make sure she went to class and got the notes. So I mean, I really couldn't have made it without her.
That's cool. But definitely to anyone watching that is interested in medicine, please make sure that you check to see if the school has a program like that, because you may not be strong in one area and that might make your application a little weaker, but you might be able to get accepted to a program like this where you still could become a doctor and be successful. It's just that you needed, just a little extra time or a little extra help or something. So
yeah, definitely. Why were you in the 5-year program? What type of 5-year program?
So what happened? It wasn't a program. What happened was when I transferred schools, my credits all transferred, but the classes I had remaining weren't offered all in the same amount of time. So I ended up having to take an extra 2 semesters.
Now, did you enjoy being there a little longer?
Oh, it was wonderful because I moved to England and I traveled to Paris, I traveled to Italy.
There you go. There you go.
I went places I would not have had time to do now, so it was great. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love it.
And plus, because I didn't have the same heavy course load as everyone else, I had time to do that because I only had 2 classes a semester.
Absolutely. See, that type of thing is priceless right there because, like you just said, I mean, once life catches up to you and you're in your residency and then you're practicing medicine and all that, it really is hard. I mean, it's damn near impossible to take a month off and go to Europe. I mean, you can't. It's really kind of unheard of for physicians to just stop everything and go. I mean, going over there to practice is a different thing, but what you were able to do, yeah, that's pretty cool, Renee.
Yeah. So you go to medical school. Now, when did you decide that you wanted to become a sexologist as well?
You know, I think I always, probably once I started med school, I knew that I wanted to be able to focus on sex because I had done so much work with HIV outreach and dealing a lot with gay men coalitions and so on and so forth. And I just really was interested in sex, and I think in med school I expected to learn a little more about sex than we really did. The extent of sex that you learn in med school is really just reproduction. You know, it doesn't really talk. I guarantee you the word orgasm wasn't even mentioned the whole time you're in med school. Not when I was there. And erection is barely mentioned. And, you know, so lubrication, yeah, they stay away from that one too. And so it was kind of towards the end of med school, maybe my junior year, I got involved with the Institute of Women and Ethnic Studies, and they had a program where they would take med students. They would do a retreat. At that time, I believe it was in Jamaica, for maybe about 5 days, and they would teach you about the reproductive rights of women and minority women, you know, through history. So probably this was the first time, you know, I'd gone to a private white school, and then I'd gone to Vanderbilt, which is a private college, which is all white. I mean, in any black history that I got, I don't know how I got it. So to go on this retreat with these women who were just so smart and knew all this stuff about reproductive rights and the eugenics movement, and for those of you who don't know what the eugenics movement is, if you're on Facebook right now, you've seen all of the posts about Planned Parenthood and how Planned Parenthood was racist, and Planned Parenthood just provides all these abortions for everybody. Well, Margaret Sanger, who founded Planned Parenthood, she was one of the founders of the eugenics movement, and eugenics basically means a movement to like keep the race pure and to kind of annihilate minority populations. So, you know, that's really gave us birth control. Birth control came about as part of this eugenics movement. So all of this stuff that I'm learning, I had never really heard about or thought about, and so it really opened my eyes up to a whole other part of life that I had been blinded to. Because, you know, what you don't know, you just don't know. And if you don't know it, you really don't know it. So when coming back from that, as part of one of the requirements, they required that you did a presentation for your classmates at your school so that they could get a little bit of kind of what you learned. So what my presentation was going to be about was about kind of this undercut cuff of society at the time that was going on with prostitution, particularly male prostitution at the adult bookstores in Nashville, Tennessee. Because Nashville, Tennessee had at the time, and they still kind of do, these adult bookstores. You'd walk in there, it was like a super mall, right? And they've got the vibrators and they've got the movies, but in the back they have booths, you know, with glory holes all back there, and you know, the prostitutes would be back there, and you know, they'd make money from gentlemen who'd come in, go into the booths and do certain things. So the connection between prostitution and HIV and, you know, a whole range of other health issues and mental health issues was something that I wanted to explore in the presentation to the students, right? So here I am at Meharry Medical College. It's like a conservative, historically black medical college, and I write this up and present it to the dean. The dean was like, what the hell does this have to do with medical school? No, you can't do that. So I revised it, put it back in. How about it now? No, you can't do it. You can't do anything about sex. Pick another topic. So I had a really hard time getting my presentation going. But at that time, I realized, I said, look, you know, it's not happening for me here in terms of learning anything about sex. You know, I know just as much about it as when I started, nothing more. So when I graduated and decided on a residency, it was really a big part of me, like, just trying to find a program that I could go to in addition to my residency to become a sexologist. So it became like a mission. Where in the world can I study more sex? Because as a physician, I mean, you know how it is, Renee. You could get out and become, say you're a specialist on anything. You could be a skin specialist. You could be a hair specialist. You could be a sex specialist, really without really getting any extra training. But I really felt like I wanted extra training, and I wanted to know my stuff. So I found a program that was out of Florida, actually. And so between residency, at least twice a month, I would go to Florida, sit through my classes and coursework, which was fine because this was the funnest school I'd ever been in. I mean, they brought prostitutes in to talk to you. They brought child molesters in to talk to you. You know, you really got a good feel for the different aspects of sex and sexuality and really kind of understanding the nuts and bolts of it all. So, I mean, that was probably the most interesting coursework I've ever had. There were never any moments where I was, you know, nodding off to sleep or didn't want to read my homework. So, you know, becoming a sexologist was probably, you know, one of the most interesting study coursework that I've ever seen. I mean, gosh.
Sounds like it.
Yeah,
but I still think it's amazing that you did all of that at the same time. But that is, you know, you found something that you liked and you know, went for it.
You know, and it's funny, yeah, because besides doing that, you know, once I got my my last set of boards for residency in and got my license, I mean, then I was moonlighting, you know, I was moonlighting in an OB clinic. So it was kind of like during that time, I mean, that was the time when I was running around. I had like 10 jobs, you know, and was like studying and learning and doing this and doing that. But, you know, that's one thing I like about family medicine is, you know, I always joke with my friends and stuff that I've got a little bit of ADHD, and what family medicine actually allows you to do is, you know, it strokes that ADHD because you never know who's coming in for what, you know, working at an OB clinic and then working at an OB urgent care clinic and then having your own set of patients that you manage. And then, you know, as soon as I finished, I started working in the prisons. So, and then after working at the prison for about a year, I became the medical director of the prison. So it's been like a really, you know, talking to you has really opened my eyes to really kind of like all over the place.
You've accomplished a lot.
but it, you know, it helps make you a well-rounded person, and you can kind of, you know, adjust to whatever it is that you're thinking about or talking about. But it just helps you appreciate, you know, people for the diverse things that we are, and understand that everybody's background is different, and most importantly, not to judge it, you know. Yeah.
I completely agree. I've always said you need to treat everybody the way you'd like to be treated, and I know you personally, so I know you treat everybody the same. It doesn't matter if he was the bellman at the hotel or he was, you know, executive producer of a show. You treat everybody the same, and people, and it's funny because people are shocked when you're like, what? You know,
yeah.
Like, of course, you know, what's your name? What do you know? Blah, blah, blah.
Right. No, that's true. That's true. I remember I was a medical director at Westville Correctional Facility, right? And we had this really hard to deal with patient, and like the kind of like what you would consider to be the supermax part. And so I go over there, and he's an older white guy, right? He's probably like 70-something. And, you know, whether you know it or not, prisons are set up so that they have kind of like nursing home areas too, you know, because people are there for life. So you got the area where the old timers are, and part of it is like a little nursing home / hospital. But I got over there, and he called me all types of bitches and nigger and was spitting on me. And, you know, it was interesting because no part of me got very, you know, upset with him to the point where I had to punch him or anything like that. I mean, like, I think when you put yourself in really challenging situations like that, it prepares you for your worst set of situations. I mean, stuff like that, going to the prison every day prepared me to get pulled over by the police on bogus stuff. And to be able to sit there, even though that they're being a little bogus, for me to sit there and be like, yes, sir, no, sir, because I know my life depends on it. So, you know, as a young person, if you can do anything, you want to expose yourself to every type of opportunity that's out there, even the ones that you think are going to be really challenging for you, because what it ultimately does is kind of prepare you for the fight of life, because it really does become a fight at certain points, you know?
It really, especially in today, especially in today.
Yep.
So when did you start thinking about you wanted to pursue television?
You know what? My sister has sickle cell, and we were both graduated medical school at the same time, and you know, came and did residency in our hometown of Gary, Indiana, and she actually went to New York. And she was in New York during 9/11, and so after that I was able to convince her to kind of come back home and, you know, We didn't want her all the way out there. And so we're going through residency. I realized, when I was in residency, besides studying for sexology, studying, my medical stuff for my boards, I also had a second job. At one point it was the OB job, and the other time it was at urgent care. And so during residency, I would say I was getting maybe like $35,000 a year, maybe 40. And I was living at home with my folks, and then I had that other job. And so I just kept looking at my money like, gosh, by now I should be making more money than this, right? And I was like, well, so I just would work more hours, spend the weekend just to try to make the money I thought I was going to make. But then when I finished and I took my first job, I got my first check, So, of course, you make 6 figures, but by the time the government takes everything out of it, you're looking at the check like, is this all I'm making? I mean, I went to school all these years. Don't tell me this is my check, right? So, besides the fact that I realized that, medicine is a good living, but it's not going to pay your bills and somebody else's bills and somebody else's bills. It's really just going to help you take care of yours. I realized that at any point, since my sister had sickle cell, that she might not be able to work and that I might be taking care of both of us. So I recognized that television medicine and being a TV doctor will be a way for me to do the things that I love and make a lot of money doing it. So, and this is probably right after, so I skipped a part. I had invented this product for menstrual cramps, right? I got it patented. It was right before Thermacare came out, right? It was like this. It was a form of wearable Thermacare. So I come out with it, and I think, this is going to be it. This is what I'm going to really focus on, is making women's menstrual cramps better. Well, Thermacare came out, and, long story short, that really didn't go that way. So I ended up, there was a local show here with Theodore and Gerard McClinton, and they asked me to come on the show and talk about their my menstrual cramp product and menstrual cramps in general. So I came on their show. It was local cable access, and so I did the show. And then I went to watch it later, and I was watching the show. I was watching it. I'm like, gosh, where am I on the thing? And not really recognizing the fact that I was right there, right in front of me, but I looked so damn good on TV, I didn't recognize myself. I said, what in the world? Who is this? And then I was listening, and I was like, everything I said sounded like I just knew what I was talking about. And so between that and seeing myself on TV and being like, oh my goodness, this could be really great. I mean, look at that. Look at yourself. And the idea that, the money with medicine isn't really what you're imagining it's going to be, just kind of helped lead me to the direction of, well, TV medicine is probably going to be something I'm going to be good at. So.
Now, what did your parents think about that when you first told them that idea?
They didn't think anything of it because I told them everything I told my parents I was going to do, I did. So my parents had gotten to the point where they were just kind of like, oh, okay, well, whatever. You want to study sex? That's fine. You want to be on TV? That's fine too. Sure. Because actually, when I first got back to town here and was living with them, I was going through, anytime you got to move back into your mama's house, it's kind of like, oh, gee. But so I was going through that, and I said to myself, well, I will probably feel so much better if I met Oprah and was on her show. And so I told them, I said, well, I think I'm going to be on the Oprah Winfrey Show. And they were like, oh, okay. Well, we've been trying to get tickets for years. It's hard to get tickets. I said, yeah, okay. And so maybe about a week or so later, they get a phone call from the Oprah Winfrey Show talking about, can they speak to me? And my mom, I remember her calling me down in the basement because the room I moved into was in the basement. And she's like, the Oprah Winfrey Show is on the phone. So I got on the phone with the Oprah Winfrey Show, and that Friday, I think the limo showed up to come get all of us and brought us to the Oprah Winfrey Show, and I was on there. So I think my parents realized, that this child, she may not be, how we all thought she was going to be, or as perfect as we would like for her to be, but whatever she says she's going to do, it really does kind of happen. So at this point, they'd gotten into the groove of, well, if Rachel says that's what she's going to do, that's what she's going to do. But I will say this, when was doing sexology, I would say the first week of coursework, I put my website up of educating people on STDs, and it was cartoon based. I've probably had about 8 different websites at this point in my life. It's cartoon based. It provided information about sex, STDs. It had stuff for kids. It had stuff for teenagers. It had stuff for adults, and so the media stuff started pretty immediately after that, because a radio station down in Waco, Texas, they were a hard rock station at the time, and they contacted me and asked me if I would come on and start doing, answer questions about sex in the morning. And so that was my very first radio gig. I mean, of course, they weren't paying me for it or anything like that. And that's what you realize about getting to the point where I am now. I mean, I've done so much free volunteer work. When people call me asking me to come talk at they aunties, their aunties community affair, my ass is tired. I've been doing free stuff my whole life. I mean, I'm to the point now where I got bills to pay, and it is a chore to fly somewhere and do somebody's lecture for free. So it takes, when you're trying to get to do something like this, you do a lot of volunteer work and a lot of free stuff, because I mean, when you love doing what you love doing, you're providing a service, and if you don't provide that service for free first, nobody's ever going to pay you to provide the service at a fee, So
you paid your dues, but I always, and I didn't do it this time, but I always say how I know the guests. So Dr. Rachael was on the Oprah Winfrey Show. I was overseas living, so I didn't see the Oprah Winfrey Show, because by the time the Oprahs air there, they're very behind. They're like 2 seasons behind or a season behind or something. So my sister calls me and says, this girl was on the Oprah Winfrey Show today, and she had a secret that she was a DJ, but she's a doctor. And I was like, what? I said, oh, okay, whatever. And so my sister, around that time, had moved to Ada, Oklahoma, which, where is that exactly? And she was bored to tears. This is right after she graduates out of college. And she kept saying that she wanted to be a DJ when she was younger, and we all thought she was crazy. But I was like, okay. So she saw you and was like, wait a minute, I'm going to do it. I'm like, what? And so she researched the equipment and everything and said she is buying this equipment. And I was like, okay. And I didn't believe her. She called me one day. I was living in England, and the girl called me, and all I heard was, you ready, B? Let's go get him. Let's go get him. Let's go get him. And I'm like, what's that? She goes, that's my DJ equipment. Remember I told you I was going to mix Bonnie and Clyde? Beyonce and Jay-Z? That was it. How did it sound? They go, you really bought that equipment? Are you crazy? I go, Mom's going to kill you. Because my sister owned a house, but she had a room that wasn't furnished. And Rachael, you know my mother, and my mother's very much like Miss Ross. And she says, but you need to put furniture in that extra bedroom. You don't need DJing equipment. You need furniture, so when people come stay, they have a place to stay. My sister goes, ain't nobody coming to Oklahoma. I'm getting my DJing equipment. And so she was like, I said, this is so crazy. And so that's how I first was introduced to Rachael, was because my sister told me. So then I come back home, and did I never tell you this story?
I don't think I've ever heard this story, Renee.
So I come back home, and somebody got me, I think my sister might have been, maybe it was my friend Salam. They got me the 25th anniversary DVD set of Oprah Winfrey. And of course, me and my sister came to visit. We sat there and started watching it. Yeah, it was the Christmas present. So my sister was there, for New Year's. We were watching it, and they played your episode. And my sister goes, that's her. And I go, what? And I'm like looking at it like I've never seen this before. And I knew I'd watched every episode of Oprah, but then there was that year that I didn't have television in England, and I didn't see it. So I go, oh. And Alicia goes, remember I told you the doctor, da-da-da. I said, oh, that's her. And she's like, yeah. So we watched it, and at that point, I think, is when we realized you were in Chicago. And Alicia said, well, you need to find her. Why? I don't have any desire to be a DJ. That's you, And so then I would see you on stuff, and then we showed up at the Ween conference. I actually had planned that Ween conference in Chicago, And then you were one of
That's
our
how
guests.
I met you. Yes, the
Exactly. And
Women
I
Conference.
was so excited. I was like, Alicia, guess who's one of the people speaking? And she said, oh, good. Because I need to meet her too. I'm like, okay,
That's
whatever.
so funny.
And so we finally meet at the WING conference and we exchanged information. And I think it took like a couple of years for us to finally actually
It
connect. So
did.
yeah,
It
and so
did.
yeah.
It did.
But
It did.
yeah. So yeah. So that's
That's
why I
pretty
remember
cool.
I took a picture of that picture you have of the female DJ because Alicia
Yes.
wants one of those because her name is DJ Licious. And
DJ Licious.
she did a DJ's course in Philly when she was living in Delaware, and she learned how to DJ. And she asked her, she was so impressive to the DJ that taught it. They gave her all the records, but
That
yeah.
is so cool. I didn't know Lish
So, yeah.
DJ'd. My goodness. She's a chef, she DJs, she's an athlete, she's an
everything.
engineer. Oh my goodness.
Yes, we will have to have her on the show one day soon, audience. One day soon.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. We had a little internet issue we had to work out. We got that done, so now I think she can probably be a guest soon. So,
That's cool.
so that is
Cool.
so that's wonderful that your family just, and my sister, she sent me a question. She said, "Do you think that you're a dreamer?"
Oh, me? Oh
Yes.
my gosh. I dream all day, all night. I mean, sometimes people talk to me like friends and people who've known me my whole life. They're like, "Girl, what?" I mean, yeah, all I do is daydream and dream, and I think, that's part of what keeps you youthful. I think that's part of what keeps you successful, because the minute you stop dreaming and envisioning things and, seeing things differently than the rest of the world sees it, then you've kind of, you lost your mojo a little bit. You gotta dream and dream big, and, yeah, I definitely say I'm a dreamer, probably to a fault. To a fault.
So, when do you think do you remember the moment you realized that, oh my gosh, I'm actually famous? And how did you feel, and what did it feel like when people in the public started recognizing you?
Well, I still don't feel like that, and it's funny because like my mom and the people I'm with all the time are like, "You don't realize that you're famous, do you?" And I'm like, "No," because I think in your head, if you realize that you're famous, then I think you really have to change how you do things. Like
Right.
I like to go to the store how I like to go to the store. I like to, I like to be out in public a whole lot, and I like to be by myself sometimes. So, I mean, I think if you really start to think you're really all that famous, then a lot of the stuff that I've enjoyed all these years, I really have to stop doing. So particularly it's useful because here in Chicago, the show The Doctors comes on so late and it's hard to find, that at home I find that I'm less recognized than I am, when I'm traveling. Like, okay, so the biggest city is Atlanta. I go into the airport in Atlanta. I mean, I have to put makeup on to go into the airport in Atlanta because they're like, you're the doctor, girl, let me take your picture. And ooh, you look so much thinner in person. Black people say anything to you. And girl, oh, your hair looks better in person. Oh, you're actually cute. Like you have to prepare yourself for Atlanta because they're going to say any damn thing to you, and there's no way you can go anywhere without being recognized. So, as much as I love Atlanta, I don't go unless I have to now because I get recognized so much. So, really, when I'm home, I get a chance to feel like I'm still just Rachel, but when I'm on the road, it is a little more like, hey, and no one ever really knows my name, they're just like, you're that black doctor on the doctors. You're that doctor on the doctors, Right. So I find myself introducing myself. Yeah, I'm Dr. Rachael Ross. It's so nice to meet you. So, I'm still finding my way with that. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And what effect do you think social media has had on your career?
Man, I wouldn't have a career without social media, like I say that all the time, like without social media, without LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, well, I don't know that Facebook has been so integral in building my career, but I know Twitter has, LinkedIn certainly has, and YouTube. Oh, and Ustream. All of those four things have been really a big part of it because it's like anything else. I really feel like if you want to do something, if you want to be an artist, if you want to be on TV, if you want to, whatever it is that you want to do, you got to start doing it. You know, because you're not ever really doing it until you do it. And it doesn't have to be on a large platform. It doesn't have to be on a big scale, but you do have to do it. And so, you know, social media gives you the outlet to do whatever it is that you want to do. You can do it. You can be a cook on there. You could be an artist on there. You can be a clothing designer. You could be a fashion mogul. You could be whoever the hell you want to be on social media. And it plants the seeds for who you are in your day-to-day life, you know. But I will say that you just got to make sure it's authentic, you know. That's the thing. Yeah.
If anyone has any questions, you can go to, if you're on YouTube, there should be a box that says be a participant in the audience. Click there. Then in the upper right-hand corners, you'll see 9 white boxes. Click on those. It'll say Q&A. Click Q&A, and you'll see the window drop on the right-hand side of your screen, and you can ask your questions. Otherwise, maybe so. Oh, you can send me a tweet, and I should be able to see it. If you hashtag it Ask Dr. Renee Show or tag me at Ask Dr. Renee, and I will try to answer your questions as you send them in. I had several people that saw you on The Real Housewives of Atlanta, and they were just devastated that they didn't get to hear more from you because you were on a little bit of a volatile episode. And
Sure.
we won't mention what happened. So I'm surprised. I'm thinking that they're going to chime in with these questions because they were like, well, we thought we were going to learn something from her. I wanted her to talk more. I said, oh, well. I said, well, I'll have her on the show, and hopefully we can get to your questions. So we'll see if anyone has any questions.
They were that disappointed?
Oh, you should have seen my Facebook feed because I had posted, of course, on Facebook that you were going to be on. And then afterwards, everyone was like, gosh, she didn't say anything. I wanted to hear something. I wanted to learn something. And I was like, oh, oops.
Well, we all know that The Real Housewives of Atlanta is not a place to learn anything. So they should have known they weren't going to get on and learn much.
Yeah, well, they just knew they were going to hear more from you, and they were devastated, especially because they were excited because it was a sex party. You know, The Doctors is a great show, but it is a daytime show. So,
right.
Yeah. They have to stick to what they, do so that they don't lose their spot on television.
Yes, they do.
So,
they do.
So what was the first moment you realized you were doing exactly what you were put on this earth to do?
I don't remember the first time I think the first time I probably realized that it didn't have anything to do with me being on TV. It didn't have anything to do with anything like that. I think it was just more so, we used to do girl talk in our office where we would have girls from Gary come in and talk to us, and we'd teach them different things. And I knew during that process and seeing the feedback from the girls and watching them grow, I realized then that I was doing what I was born to do, which was go back to the community from which I'm from and help people lift themselves up in different ways. And I think that was the first time I really realized that I was doing what I was born to do, because I think, you go through med school and you put the years in and you do this and you're like, well, what if I was supposed to be doing something else? But being there in the clinic with the girls from my neighborhood who grew up right up the street from where I did and being able to impact their lives, I realized I was doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And now I get to do it still in my clinic, but also, on a huge scale.
Yep.
Like I went to Cuba this summer, and I was in the airport, and a lady from Canada came up and watches us all the time in Canada, and so it was in Kenya, and someone recognized me from the show. So traveling worldwide and getting to interact with everyday people and seeing the impact that the show and me being on the show has on everybody. I think that's huge, and it reminds me, when I'm traveling back and forth from Chicago to Los Angeles, and I'm putting the hours in, and I'm doing it, and I'm making it seem like it's just this really easy thing that just kind of happens. It reminds me that, putting time and energy into stuff that you love and that you're really good at, it always pays off, Yeah.
Definitely. So what you don't know, everyone, Dr. Rachel's show tapes 2 days out of a week. So she flies back and forth. She still works they have a family clinic with the children and the father. And so Ross Family Medicine in Gary, Indiana. And then she goes to LA and shoots the show. So I mean, that is a rigorous schedule. It's crazy. And she does make it look very easy because she always looks so pleasant on every episode.
You're so sweet, Renee.
No, you do. And then, I mean, what everyone doesn't realize, they shoot 3 shows in a day. That's a lot. It is. So, so you really make it look very easy. But I know it's a lot of work and it's, taxing. But I know that these people saying whatever to you in the airport, whatever, that makes it all, makes sense.
It does. It makes you, it reminds you why you do it. It does. Right. You're like, oh. Yeah.
Now, so what do you have coming in the future that you can share with the audience so that we can help support you on that and, make sure we make it a success or whatever it is?
Yeah, well, we got season 8 of The Doctors coming up, which is going to start in September. I mean, and then in my own free time, I'm doing kind of what we've done through the years, Renee, which is kind of mentor doctors who want to be on TV to kind of help them find their TV mojo and get them off on the right track. Because I think doctors on TV, we need more of them on there. We need to see that doctors are just like everybody else. There's a lot of misinformation about what's good and what's bad, and I think that doctors have to start bringing their opinion to some of this medical advice that they're giving on air. So I really want to kind of help this next generation of doctors who come out to really have strong opinions and understand that we have opinions in our own personal life, so having them on TV I think is important too, and not worrying so much about what the drug industries are going to think about what we're saying, what the food industries are going to think about what we're saying. I mean, you do have to worry about it because, there are doctors that are disappearing when they speak out too much about certain things. But, just being as honest as we can be about what's good for the people and what's not, and actually scrutinizing some of the stuff that we as physicians are spoon-fed and required to regurgitate out to you guys like it's 100% true. So you'll see more of that,
So, first of all, obviously everyone knows we're friends, but we went on a trip and I was talking to somebody. We get back to the hotel that night and she says, I learned something today. I'm like, oh, what'd you learn? I didn't know I was your mentor. I'm like, of course. You're on television. I'm trying to get there. You tell me what to do. I do it. So that was the funniest thing to me.
I have to say, watching you, go through and do your thing, do this show and really, hone in on who Dr. Renee makes me proud. I mean, you're doing a great job. So just
Thank
please
you. I appreciate
keep up the good work. Don't, like one thing that I do regret is there was a point in my career where I was on the radio, every Thursday here in Chicago. And I had built an email list of connections that was probably like 40,000 deep. Through the years and through process, that those emails have become obsolete. Not necessarily because they're old as hell, but really because I didn't keep in touch with those people. And so what I've noticed about you and what's going to help you in terms of getting to where it is that you want to be is that you're really good about socializing and keeping in touch with people, and that's going to be a big part of propelling you to the next scene of wherever it is that you want to be. So I'm proud of you. Keep up the great work.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
My sister said she went to one taping of The Doctors and was exhausted. So she said, so I don't know how you do the whole thing for 3. Yeah. So we had another question come in from our dear friend Stephanie. She would like to know, how do you juggle everything?
Stephanie, that's such a good question. And for the first time in my life, I could say I felt really tired at the end of our taping season this time. I mean, I probably came home and I kept the same clinic schedule that I had when I was taping because it just took me so long to catch back up with myself. So I think the biggest thing that I use to juggle it all is I realize that when I'm doing all this, it's not for me. It's because God has called me to do this, and I mean, since I'm here to do it and provide a service, that I realize it's bigger than me. And since it is bigger than me, the little stuff that gets on my nerves, like, oh gosh, first class is sold out this time, Dr. Rachael, can we put you in coach? I have to check myself and realize, You know what, Rachel? When you're buying your own ticket, you barely fly first class anyway. So get on the damn coach flight. So I have family members that keep me in check. They're like, did you, well, you said you were gonna take the trash out. You didn't take it out yet. So it's everything ends up being like checks and balances on when you feel like, hey, I mean, I'm really, bitch, you're not really, you are really just Rachel, and you need to just get out there and continue to work hard like you always have. So I think when I put it in perspective like that, like this is all really bigger than me, and I'm providing a service, and people are stopping me thinking, I'm really making an impact and a difference. Well, I've got it in my head, feel like I'm making a difference too. So it kind of all mushes together to help propel me to stay energized about it and keep it moving,
That is hilarious. But yeah, coach is rough sometimes, right?
Only when you stop and think it is, otherwise, right. I mean, I fly Southwest all the time. Every time I go visit Ruth in Nashville, I'm on the Southwest flight. Now all of a sudden I'm like, oh, what, coach? I'm like, what? Get it together, like, who you think you are? So.
But Southwest has the best customer service, I must say.
They do, and the free internet, and you can watch TV on there, on your laptop and on your iPad. Southwest got it going on. You're right.
Well, so thank you so much, Dr. Rachel. Please tell everyone where they can find you.
You can find me on pretty much most of the social media outlets at Dr. Rachael, DrRachael. You can find me on my website, drrachel.com, and you can watch me every day on a television show called The Doctors. It is the best television show in the universe, so make sure you check it out. And if you're ever in the Los Angeles area, you can come watch us tape live on Thursdays and Fridays. We'd love to have you.
The doctor's website, if you need to figure out when it's coming on for you, is thedoctorstv.com, but I will have all that information in the video box below. This is the Ask Dr. Renee show, and I do have to say that Alicia is getting on the plane now.
Oh, she just texted me. Yeah, she said, great show on the plane. English, safe travels.
Yes, for anyone that's just watching, Alicia is my sister, and she is my executive producer. And so she sends me text messages and all sorts of things all the whole time while I'm doing the show to keep me in check and keep everything going. And so we didn't think she was going to be watching the show because she was flying today, but she had a layover in Charlotte. So she was able to, and she was texting me right along and giving me the cues. So things went smoothly.
So cool. I love that.
Well, I knew she did not want to miss this show, and I knew she was mad about it.
I love that she's your executive producer, man. Sister power. It's nothing like it.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So thank you. And everyone that's watching, anyone that has any questions for either one of us, you can tweet her, you can tweet me, and follow me all across all social media platforms at Ask Dr. Renee. And now every episode is on iTunes, and they are available video podcasts as well as audio podcasts. So please search iTunes. You can search Ask Dr. Renee, and you can find the podcast. It's free, doesn't cost you anything. So please subscribe. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you'll be alerted and you'll find out what's coming up next. Next Sunday, we have Moms in Charge. That's her name on all social media, MomsNCharge, and her name is Christine St. Ville. She's a mommy blogger, but she is way more than that. She's got 3 kids. She homeschools. She's a wife, and she's just amazing, and you will not want to miss that. She's going to have lots of good tidbits about being an entrepreneur and being a mommypreneur and how she left her job and, lived the life that she deserved. You can also catch me every day on Periscope. Renee's Remedies airs 7 o'clock at Central Standard Time every day. And I give little tidbits of information
7 p.m. or 7 a.m.?
p.m. Central Standard Time. And I give tidbits about health, wealth, and just anything to help you to live the life that you deserve. So everyone, I look forward to seeing you in the internet streets, as my dear friend Amber Wright of Talk to Amber says. And we will see you next week, same time, same place. Thank you.